Down on the 8. Going to throw on a run, complete to the 25, to the 30. Lindsey Scott 35, 40. Lindsey Scott 45, 50, 45, 40. Run, Lindsey 25, 20, 50, 10, 5. Lindsey Scott, Lindsey Scott, Lindsey Scott.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dogs Down South. Coming to you on Wednesday night. 52 days until kickoff. 52 days from today is kickoff. Georgia versus Clemson. Man, it seems like every single day it just gets more and more intense. I may be overwhelmed by that statement, but the good news is we're also less than 6 or so days. Is it 6? No. Let's just put it this way. Next Monday at this time, NCAA football will be able to hold you over for the next 40 some odd days until we get to the real deal. So that would be great. Welcome tonight, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. If you not already know, we're on YouTube. We're live on Facebook tonight, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So make sure you go like, follow. We are getting closer to the season, and we would love to have you guys join in. But also glad if you're listening later on Apple Podcasts, please go follow because this will be live 24 hours later. We previewed the SEC last week, first 3 teams, actually 2 weeks ago. First 3 teams we covered Alabama, Arkansas, and hold that thought. Don't know who the third one was, but yeah. So we covered 3 teams out of the jump from the SEC. It was Missouri actually, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri 2 weeks ago, opening as our SEC preview. Before we go any farther, what's up, Fish? How are you, buddy?
What's up, man? Good. Trying not to melt.
Trying not to melt.
It's been super hot lately.
I get that, man. It's been, a lot of it is that. I mean, we're definitely all praying for anybody in the line of that hurricane that came through the Louisiana area and anybody that's getting hit as it goes up through the United States. But a lot of it had to do, man, with that warm air, that warm water that stirred that hurricane through here, man. And it has been definitely muggy, man. Very, very muggy. So
yeah. Our community's been over 90% for like 6 days straight.
Sheesh. It's where you just want to be by a pool and, with the daiquiri and just, definitely not fighting the heat from a work perspective. Awesome. So 52 days, man, until kickoff. Exciting. SEC Media Days around the corner. July 15th through 18th. I think on the 16th, which is Tuesday, Georgia goes. Carson Beck is going to speak, Michael Williams, Malachi Starks. So what are you thinking? So this is a year, Fish, that, no Nick Saban. Kirby's kind of the guy that's been, we're hearing that's leading the way as far as that voice of reason in those SEC coaching meetings, as well as around media days coming up. What do you think from a standpoint of Kirby and a preview of Georgia? What do you think we're going to hear around media days from Kirby?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about, since Saban being gone, he's, the guy, the voice of reason, like you said, the one that everybody's waiting to hear from. I don't know. Like, I just can't wait, man. This means that we're so close. We're so much closer, into August. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say, man.
It's hard to say that. It's a hard question because you never know with Kirby. He kind of holds his cards close to him. He definitely, plays his hand very well. I would definitely say he's definitely would be a good Texas Hold'em player. So it's really hard to predict.
Straight face.
Yeah, what he's going to say. And he doesn't really coach his players up on what to say. He just tries to teach them the integrity and what it means to be a leader on this team. And I've seen multiple media posts and things of that nature, Instagram, any kind of social media outlets that have been covering parts of like leadership camps that Georgia and Kirby has been putting some of their seniors and leaders in the team through, and I really love that. I love the skull sessions that they have where they intentionally are growing together as leaders and units, skill units on the team. So I think we do an incredible job at Georgia, and Kirby does, of just trying to build integrity. And I don't ever worry about what some of these guys are going to say, unlike other teams. And that's not me being, partial. It's just I just think we have a great leader model.
It's just like Saban with his Alabama guys. I mean, you never heard them say anything off the wall or crazy, anything like that. I don't know about coaching them up, but like they don't have to, because they're all like in a collective. They're all on the same page. Like you mentioned, those skull sessions they do. That brings everybody closer together, and they gel, and everybody knows where everybody's at all the time as far as like the mind state. You know what I'm saying? So you're right. Like, absolutely, they don't have to worry. They don't need to be coached up. They're good.
Yeah, definitely. What's up, Tim Estes? How are you, man? Tim says UGA, Tennessee, Mizzou seems to be the top three according to the mainstream media. Alabama may not be the same Alabama, but hey, they're Alabama. Auburn has a floor of 7-5. Yeah, man. We are getting ready in the future to we're going to be previewing Auburn. We're saving them kind of towards the end. I know we have a lot of Auburn fans out there. But yeah, we previewed Missouri 2 weeks ago. Haven't seen much on Tennessee. That's a food for thought question right there. I think Tennessee's going to be good. I don't know if I see them. I would more think you're going to see a Texas. Maybe you meant Texas. I don't know. Maybe I would say UGA, Texas, Missouri would be maybe, but I don't know. Maybe you meant Tennessee. But
Facebook
anyways,
is making a big deal out of Nico skipping media days for some reason today. But he's only a sophomore.
Yeah.
Right? Or redshirt freshman this year. So, I mean, freshmen and sophomores don't usually go speak at media days, right?
Yes, gotcha. I don't know. I mean, Heupel's not like I said, you got a big culture drop off when it comes to Heupel and Kirby. So, and Tim says, I meant Texas. I figured that's what you meant. But yeah, I agree with those three teams. We previewed Missouri, man. I like Missouri. I like Missouri's schedule. I think Missouri's schedule bodes well for them. And we talked about it. So make sure you go grab episode 17 where we talked about Missouri. We previewed Arkansas, Alabama. But yeah, man. Other news, breaking news, man. If anybody hasn't heard, man, let's talk about this 6'11", 340-pound monster that Georgia just landed. Offensive line recruit, was actually an elite basketball player, committed. He was part of Overtime Elite Basketball, which was a NBA recruiting basketball program, and he was highly recruited for the NBA coming out of high school. But now, he's making he's actually graded out as a 4-star. But the thing I'm seeing, man, is like you can't coach size, bro. Like, this is a mammoth human being. 6'11", 340. I mean, the man is an absolute monster, man. Like, what do you think about this, Fish?
What position is he going to be? DT or tight end?
Offensive line.
Offensive line? Oh my
offensive line.
Definitely.
They showed some tackle. They showed some stuff where he was at this offensive line, like I don't know, it'd be like summer workout program, and dude, this guy moves like he's 240. Like, it's incredible. This guy
if he's playing basketball, he's going to have lateral quickness, because all the drills and stuff they run, like that. Yeah. So, that's scary, man.
Was nuts, man. Was nuts.
He's a monster.
One of the Recruiting America 247 says college football is one of the most physically imposing players they've ever seen at the position. I'm like, this is 247, bro. 247 Sports said this. So, Jazair Jackson
coming out of high school, 340. That's nuts.
Committed to Georgia. Nuts, man. Stacy Searles just continues to get dudes in the cupboard, man. You can't coach size. And what I mean by that is, man, is like we've shown in the past, man, when you have size on that line that's coached well, that can do things with I would say the God given abilities that they've been blessed with, the physical talent they've been blessed with. It's just hard to beat it, dude. It's hard to beat that. Imagine if that guy's playing at a top level and he's 6'11", 340. I saw that one, and believe me, there have been some exciting recruits, but when I saw that one, man, the picture on the front of the recruiting thing, man, he looks like an absolute animal. They've got him like flexing and growling, like just like, dude, Smart is putting together another incredible 2025 class coming off of 2024. Just super, super crazy, man. Super crazy. Yeah, man. Dude, I thought it would be cool, Fish. Let's talk about, before we hop into and continue our SEC preview, man. I had a question that was on another podcast that I love the conversation around, and I wanted to bring it to it was actually around the entire SEC. But I thought it'd be cool to bring it to our dog family. But I thought it'd be cool to talk about 3 guys not named Carson Beck who will shape this Georgia team this year. And I think it's valid to talk about. I'd love to hear if you got 3, if you got 2, or maybe just 1, Fish, who you got in there. But I was going to talk about these guys separately. But what about, do you got 3, Fish? Do you got 2, or is there 1? Like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no,
who do you think is 3 for you?
We'll start at number 3 and go down, work our way down to 1. All right. Okay. 3, I will go CJ Allen.
All right.
That's a layup. He's our middle linebacker, quarterback at the defense. Was a true freshman last year, got forced into playing, got a lot of experience, a lot of playing time, and if he just continues to trend in that direction, just like he's, at the end of last season, we're good. Like, he's definitely going to make an impact.
I agree. CJ Allen's on my list too. I was going to hop in there and say we agreed on CJ Allen. I totally agree on that. I think he is a guy that's not named Carson Beck that's going to shape this team this year. Now, a lot of people are asking, like, I know in my list, this would have been a spot for me for Mykel Williams too. And Mykel Williams is representing the defense, but the same as you, I look at that middle linebacker position as it's always been the quarterback of this defense. Kirby has a lot of checks. Schumann and everything, they have a lot of checks on defense, man. They go through as many checks on defense as some offenses go through. And so it's very important to have a very smart. This is a guy too, CJ Allen, that has an incredible GPA. I think if I'm not mistaken, he was carrying like a 3.8, 3.9 GPA. Very smart kid, book smart, sport smart. He's a quarterback for that team. But not only that, and you mentioned this when we looked at G-Day, the physical abilities that we saw from this kid, to be able to come in and take over for, I don't know if you know this, but to take over for a guy that he kind of pushed out. And we're going to preview Kentucky tonight, but James Dumas Johnson was the sack leader for Georgia before he left with his injuries. And so CJ Allen's going to be a vital part. So I definitely agree with you that. Who you got at your number 2?
Colby Young.
Okay. Talk to me on that one. I don't have that one, but talk to me on that one.
He's getting lots of playing time. He's going to be the guy down there in South 20. Our red zone numbers were not great last year.
Okay.
Like, it seemed like it was hard for us to score down inside, like 15, 10. Like, we just don't have plays, I guess, or we didn't have guys. We didn't have athletes or, nobody that we could just throw the ball up to. Brock Bowers was great, but he's not going to jump over everybody.
Right.
He wasn't known for his vertical. It was his everything else. That was like probably the one thing that, if he had an Achilles heel, that was probably it. So yeah, he's gonna open up the door for us to do a lot of stuff down there in the red zone. Throwing some fades, some back shoulder things going on down there. So yeah, definitely Colby.
Yeah, I like Colby. I think maybe I don't have him in that 3 guys not named Carson Beck who will shape the team, but I do agree with you. I did not think about that. I agree with you on the red zone numbers. I think that's crucial. I think that's getting the ball inside the 20 and having that weapon so that we don't feel like I don't know about you, but like we tend to not be very creative, in my opinion, inside the 20. And that's going to give us a lot of room to be creative. I don't
Like,
think it's never this we're not don't have the talent. I just feel like sometimes, and I'm not definitely not going to the Bobo play calling era because might open up that can of worms. I think he did a great job last year,
yeah,
but I just think we lack creativity sometimes in
yeah,
the red zone.
it's unbelievable. Like we're so good doing everything else. You know, like the past couple of years, you know, driving downfield, but sometimes we get stuck. Once we get down inside the 20, it seemed like, you know, and we'd end up kicking a field goal or something or going, you know, 4-and-out, depending on the situation. But still, yeah, just hopefully that improves this year. Hopefully he's the reason it does. That's why I had him at number 2. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to go a different route with wide receiver, though, and stick there. I would say my number 2 at the wide receiver position is going to be Dom Lovett. I think Dom, I think he needs to, if we're ever going to impose, I think this is a year that we've really been intentional in the portal and recruiting wise as well. You're seeing, you know, we've already landed a couple of receivers in the 2025 class. I think James Coley is changing the dynamic of their recruiting in the wide receiver position. We need that. But we did a lot of work in the portal this year with Young. But I think Dom Lovett is a portal get from last year who scratched the surface in some entities of what was going on. And he had a great spring game. You know, and you know, 54 receptions, 613 yards, 4 TDs. I think he could easily be a 1,000-yard receiver this year, and he needs to at least have double-digit TDs. I think in order for those other receivers to be able to be a little bit more deadly, for you know Kobe White, for Arian Smith to be a deep threat, and Lovett to be that guy that can be the sure hands kind of Brock Bowers kind of guy. I love the additions of to the depth at the tight end. I've heard so much about Urosek. Like I haven't seen that guy even step in a uniform yet,
Can't wait to
but
see
there's
it.
so much hype around him.
Yeah.
So interested in seeing all that. But Dom Lovett is a guy I think that's not named Carson Beck, who I think has to have a solid year. I think Dom's gonna I think Carson's going to rely on Dom a lot, kind of like I think he's going to be the Bowers, Lab McConkey type go-to guy. I think, you know, if I'm not even mistaken, like if I had to guess right now, I think they're roommates. I don't even know it, but I think he knows. I think this is the intentionality of Beck. If he's going to be great this year, he's going to have a go-to receiver that he can trust. And that's going to have to be Dom Lovett this year. Who you got at your number 1?
My number 1 is going to set all that up, all the passing game, all the yards that Carson Beck's going to have. Trevor Etienne.
Okay.
Going to take a lot of pressure off of the O-line. Because last year, we had some good running backs, but they were gimpy, you know, most of the season, you know, weren't 100%. You know, that's going to improve a lot this year. Branson Robinson, you know, being the spell. Woo, it's like if they're gonna enable all of Carson Beck's ability to find Colby Young and Dom Lovett, you know, and Urasek, you know, because there's nobody, they're not gonna just line up and blitz, you know, they're not gonna be able to. They're gonna have to watch out for the run game. And sometimes in certain situations last year, I think we just got a little transparent, you know, because of just, you know, the situation we were in with injuries and stuff like that. So yeah. Give me Trevor Etienne number 1.
Yeah, little teaser clip before we get into. I'm excited on the lead up, but I definitely know a couple nights before that opening game, Georgia Clemson. One of the main topics that we're going to talk about is, you know, I remember this time last year where we went in and played Oregon 2 years ago. Actually, we played Oregon, or was it last year? We opened against Oregon last year. No, it was 2 years ago.
No, 2 years. Sorry.
And you know, there was I don't think there was a lot of expectations that year. I think people had not, you know, bought into what is Stetson Bennett, you know, what does this look like for Georgia and things of that nature. And then that was one of the most exciting games I've ever seen from a standpoint of throwing the football, you know, an offensive showcase and how well the defense played against a really good Oregon team. But I think one of the big questions that we're going to talk about before the beginning of the year is can we be loose against Clemson? Can we not come in with these expectations of, I don't want to be that guy with the elephant in the room, but like, is this a year where you go, we have all this talent now, we have great coaches. Are we going to be loose and just ready to go in and have a good time, play football, and not come out tight? We got all this talent now. And there were so many years, man, where Mark Richt and our teams came out, and on paper, we had such a great team. And we would open up that first game. I always remember, for me, it was South Carolina. South Carolina always gave us fits, man, second game of the year.
Yeah.
Dude, we would just lay an egg, man. Like, David Pollock would have to, rip the ball out of the quarterback's hands in the last 2 minutes of the game to seal a 13-9 victory or something like that.
In the end zone.
Yeah, and it's like, why do we have all this firepower on offense and all these great defensive players, and we're just winning games by 3? So I think that'll be the elephant in the room. Question is, do we have all the talent now, but are we going to be loose? And I think the question is will Kirby have them ready? Yes, but will our players be able to mesh, not come in with any kind of weight on their shoulders? Because I think you hear stuff, you see stuff, you listen to social media, and they know how talented we are this year, and also that we've added a lot to the cupboard. So I'm interested to see that. But I like the ETN thing. ETN's my honorable mention. And the reason I say that is because I think ETN's going to be a huge deal. I think he's going to add a lot of things that were kind of taken care of last year when you looked at the lightning and the thunder type atmosphere. I think Branson and Robinson squared. Is that squared when there's two? I don't know. Math stuff. But, Robinson and Robinson are going to provide that punch for you, right? And so you look at ETN to be the guy who's going to be the better pass catcher out of the backfield, the more elusive back, the more has great, field vision, is going to do a lot of things for us to make Carson Beck, like you said, very deadly. So he's my honorable mention. So I can definitely agree with you on that. I had Malachi Starks in at my number 1 and my number 3. And I'll tell you why I got Malachi. I don't know, because, definitely a veteran player back there. But I want to make sure and see how he comes off of this shoulder surgery and things. But he's got a job in his hands. He's got to be, he doesn't have the vets back there with him, Bullard, Lassiter, and things of that nature that have been sitting in that defense with him for years. And he's got some new guys, he's got some young guys, and he's going to be the quarterback of that secondary. And it's going to be very important that I think lining up is the big deal. Once you line up correctly, and we all know in the SEC and in college football, lining up is so important, because if you don't, you can have all the talent in the world. If you're out of place and you're not ready, you're done. The offensive schemes in this game are crazy good. And so I think from a standpoint of quarterbacking that secondary, would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I love Malachi. We were talking about the Oregon game. That's where he bust onto the scene with that diving interception that he had. Like, that's like, we were like, oh, who is that? Oh, that's Malachi. Oh, okay. That's a name to remember. Like, we knew, like, right off the rip. So, yeah, definitely, man. We're so lucky to have him, because we're
I agree.
Up on the back end this year.
And we sowed some of that. We look at Malachi, and Malachi came out as I can't remember if he was 4 or 5. I know he's a 4, maybe a 5-star talent, but we had those other guys. I mean, I'm curious to see when we start, fall practice and camp, what, how we're going to use CJ Bolden. I know we're going to use him in the special teams area, but how do we use him? How do we use Ellis? I mean, is Ellis a guy? I mean, I know they want to keep him at corner, so they're not going to do a lot of experimenting with him there. But so I'm excited to see how Malachi is going to quarterback that secondary, because we're definitely young, and we're definitely, game experience back there is going to be crucial. So
got some leaders on that side of the ball, though. I mean, him and CJ and Raylan Wilson. I mean, they got it. Mikael Williams, they got it. They're going to get them boys in order.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, man, let's continue part 2 of SEC preview. We're gonna preview 3 more teams tonight. Starting out tonight with a team that I always love talking about. There's so many so many standout points to talk about with this team first out of the gate.
Especially this year.
Yeah, definitely, because it has some Georgia ties, right? So we're talking about them Kentucky Wildcats. So so as we look at what Kentucky can be this year and what we presume them to be, a couple things that stand out, some returning standouts. Wide receiver Barian Brown, really, really, really athletic, elusive, 4.2, high 4.2, 4.3 40s, just an absolute track star type speed. Cornerback Maxwell Harrison, probably one of the top 2-3 cornerbacks in the league. De'Aaron Jackson, linebacker for Kentucky, will be his third year there this year. Really strong. I mean, Deion Walker, just an absolute mammoth defensive tackle.
Yeah, he was
I
great
love this defense, dude. Like, I love the defense. I think the questions are on offense. I love this defense. But some breakout things I have, and I'm gonna let you kind of speak into Kentucky. But some breakout players I think that we have is for me, it's the quarterback position for them has been the one that just hasn't added up the last few years. And so when we look at Brock Vandagriff and what his transfer means to Kentucky, let's talk about that, Fish. Like, how bad does Kentucky need consistent quarterback play? Like,
bad. So bad, because that's really been what's been holding them back the past few years. They've been so close. They've had talent everywhere else. I mean, last year they had great running back, good defense, a couple of not bad wide receivers, not the best, but not bad, good enough. Serviceable is the word. There you go. But yeah, the quarterback just totally underperformed, underwhelmed. Just bad. They've just been missing the mark, and I hate that that's been holding them back. I mean, I don't hate it because they play us there. They were in the East with us now. Oh, that's out the window. But I'm just excited to see Brock play. I think they got a winner in him, and that makes them a team, in my opinion. Nobody's going to want to really play. Not that, they're that team that could upset anybody. They might not win 9 games next year, 10 games next year, but they're going to be a tough win. They're going to be a hard W.
Yeah, and the thing that always just, and we'll get to it because I got some strengths questions on what to look for, but the elephant in the room, and I use that topic a lot tonight, but Stoops for me, man, like he's been at Kentucky a while now, like. Some of me starts to wonder, like, does Kentucky feel like this is as good as we can get? I have no idea. I mean, I might be wrong. Don't call me a Stoops hater, but like the whole Alabama trying to go after Stoops, I didn't know what that was about, bro. I mean, was that just about his agent putting his name in there to get him a raise? Because I don't believe he deserves a raise from some of his coaching duties the past few years. But my question has always been, are we getting to the point where is Stoops failing them, or is Kentucky just failing? Like, and I know it's always pace of the leader is pace of the team. That's Stoops, but has Stoops done a good enough job that Kentucky should be better from talent? Like, that's the question.
Could be. I don't know. It seems to me that they get the talent, and maybe it is the coaching that lets them down. You think that that name has got to garner some variety from recruits and donors and stuff like that. I mean, it has to. But at the end of the day, it's about him and his ability to lead the team. I don't know. Kentucky is a hard job. I mean, it's just a step above Vandy, as far as the winning tradition in the SEC, and in the East. I mean, when's the last time Kentucky played for the SEC championship?
But I just feel like they've had teams. I mean, Leary was supposed to be the guy last year, right? And I don't know if it was a bust or, I mean, Liam Cohen, man. I mean, the Bucks wanted him pretty bad, dude. Tampa Bay Bucks got Liam Cohen. They wanted him pretty bad. So, like, I don't know, man. Something's not connecting with the whole Stoops thing. And I look at Stoops, and I know he's always
this year.
Yeah, but my question is before we start talking about strengths and questions, my number one thing on the list is when you look at strengths, I think the strengths of Stoops is, I think he's a great defensive mind, but I think his questions are, why can't these Kentucky teams get motivated to play? Because I'll never forget, man, when we lined up against, I can't remember the records. I think they had a really good record, Fish. When we played Kentucky at home last year, was Kentucky undefeated?
Yeah.
That's definitely something to look at. I know they had a pretty dang good record. I think they were ranked decently high. That was supposed to be a game in Athens last year. It was far from that. Devin Leary, he choked. He couldn't get the ball, he couldn't get the ball from behind the line of scrimmage. He caused some turnovers that were not even pass related. And when he threw the ball, it just didn't look like it had a lot on it. So I don't know, man. But he looked like a completely different coach. I mean, he looked like a completely different player at NC State. I saw some games that Devin Leary was in at NC State. A lot less talent. And I mean, preferably, I would say a better draw at SEC coaches. So I don't know. So anyways, as we look at some things that are definitely strengths of there, you look at the defensive line, very big, very talented. I like Deion Walker. Deion Walker reminds me of a Jalen Carter type player. He's awesome. An abrupter. He Jordan Davis, maybe not as big as Jordan Davis, but he's definitely
just disruptive.
Yeah. I like Deion Walker. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a high pick. I think he's been hidden in a defense that has not just really performed up to their standards, which is another thing. We talked about Pittman 2 weeks ago. Pittman's an offensive line guy. Why is their offensive line always terrible? By the way, I had a YouTube. What's that?
I was just saying. I was just reiterating what we said last week or the week before. That's got to be the one thing that your team excels in. If you're a specialty position coach or something like that, that part of the team has to be the best part of your team. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Agreed. No, let me start. Agreed, man. And so that's kind of the question we have is why does the defense have all these? I mean, the two comments I have for strengths, and these, I'm getting a lot of this information from multimedia outlets, recruiting magazines, things they have for the outlook on some of these teams. And the top two things for strengths that are consistent with all of the media outlets for Kentucky this year are D-line is big, talented, and then fast and physical secondary. I mean, I said it earlier. I mean, how a little list there. Did you hear that? I said it earlier. Maxwell Harrison, dude, top three cornerback in not only SEC, but probably in the nation. So it's like
this rating on the game.
This defense looks great. And you add, on top of De'Aaron Jackson, a breakthrough player I have on defense is the addition of James Dumas Johnson. If he can play to the ability that he was playing before he got injured at Georgia, this defense gets incredibly talented in addition to all of that. So I don't know, man. It's kind of that whole Pittman thing. It's like, why can't the defense be good? Stoops, So I don't know. And then questions, obviously. So a lot of questions around. So now we got Brock Vandagriff. We have some. What's up, Rich man? How are you, buddy? Can Hamdan, new offensive coordinator, Butch Hamdan, can he mesh? With this new team, can him and Brock Vandagriff? I put SCBG or Vandagriff. Can him and Brock mesh? Can they get things going the right direction? Big line, big question mark last year. The offensive line, can it hold up? Went in the portal, grabbed a lot of guys. Can they stay injury free? That's the huge thing. And listen to this: special teams was the worst yards per average punt last year in the SEC. That don't help the defense a lot. So, those are the questions, the burning questions in the building. Obviously, the big coaching change was Liam Cohen left, went to the Bucks, and they signed Butch Hamdan. I don't know where Hamdan's from, but I've heard good things about him, and he runs a little bit more of a pro-style offense, which is what Stoops likes, but only if it works, right? Because the thing about pro-style offenses is they're built to keep the offense on the field, but if you can't run the football, pro-style offense doesn't really work, right? You can't block and you can't run. Pro style offense doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Stats they need to improve on. Offensive last year, 125th in the league in passing. I mean, hello, Brock Vandegrift. I mean, that
Yeah.
pretty much improved when he walked into the quarterback room, in my opinion.
That has to improve.
125th in passing. Defense, 53rd in scoring. So once again, you look at those two. The biggest stat I see is how can you be an SEC team? I mean, we haven't covered Vanderbilt yet, but I don't know if that might be a topic that they're higher in than Vanderbilt is 125th in passing. That's atrocious, man. Key games, and I think the number one key game on this list that will set the tone of what Kentucky's going to do this year is they get South Carolina at home. But then the other key games and the things behind these games that are critical is you get South Carolina at home, you get Georgia at home, you get Auburn at home, then you got to go to Texas. So you got to go to Austin, play Texas. But by then, that game's either a make game or it doesn't mean anything by then if they don't clear that front half of their schedule. But Kentucky's an interesting as we wrap up Kentucky. They're interesting being this year. I look at the big things I look at with them are Stoops. Is this a lot of content for later on, but I think some of the questions we'll start looking at as we grow closer towards the college football season opening up is like who's on the hot seat this year. I know we have a lot of questions around a lot of coaches. I know I have a couple that I would say I think everybody has Billy Napier on the hot seat. I think some could say Pittman. But for me personally, man, like I don't know how much more patient they're going to be with Stoops at Kentucky. That's me personally. But a lot of people say that Stoops is untouchable there because as long as you go 7-5, 8-4, and you make a bowl game, they're happy to be into basketball season. So, and they're actually decent in baseball too. So, let's roll on. Yeah, they're really good in baseball this year.
There were a lot of SEC teams really good this year.
Yeah, I agree. Mississippi State, man, the Bulldogs, the other Bulldogs, right? So as we hop into Mississippi State, a lot of people would say not a lot of expectations this year for Jeff Lebby and his crew. But I beg to differ. I think the expectations, there is a lot of expectations, but it's less expectations on record and wins and losses and more expectations on can Jeff Lebby get this team back to, I think they saw this vision that they wanted to see of the Pirate running the air raid offense, and they're like, well, what about Jeff Lebby, man? Can Lebby come and throw the ball 70 times and get the same? So I think that's what they kind of wanted. But Fish, before we hop into some stuff with Mississippi State, like what jumps out to you about Mississippi State, and what do you think is a good prognosis for them this year?
Middle of the road, lower middle of the SEC is where I got them finishing this year. Just a lot of turnover. New transfer quarterback coming in, new transfer wide receiver coming in, new head coach. Everybody's got to get on the same page, and it's hard to do in one off season. I don't think they should expect too much, but I think anything over 500 for them is great. I think they'll be happy. But any 500 or better, I think they'll be happy with them this year. Now next year it'll be different, but I mean,
they're
I don't know.
Would you agree they're kind of like I kind of saw your reaction right off the bat, and it said a lot. And it's the same way with me. They look like that coin flip type team this year. It's like when you look at one side, can you go, all right, Jeff Lebby. I like Lebby, man, a lot. I like his offensive strategy. I think he's an incredible offensive mind. He's from the Lane Kiffin school of shenanigans, as I call him. So I like him. I like, Blake Shapen, Baylor transfer. I like Shapen. The things that stand out to me is returning standouts. They were the only two they're not really standouts because they're the only two starters that are returning from the entire team last year. So that's what's troubling is there's some talent coming in, but the only two starters returning are right tackle Leon Bell and free safety Corey Ellington. And to be honest with you, those are not players that if I were looking at those players as returning standouts, I don't know if they make my list. That would just be, I think, for Mississippi State, that needed to say returning starters because they only have two returning starters. But I like, Blake Shapen, Baylor transfer. I like Kelly Akari, UTEP transfer, 1,000-yard receiver last year. I like Kelly Akari. I like some pieces that he brought in. He brought in a couple offensive linemen. Didn't do a lot with the defense. I guess he's just saying, man, maybe we can score 70 and they score 68. I don't know. Maybe that's his whole avenue. But yeah, somehow or another, we were limited on home games this year, but this is the game that we're going to head up to and see in person. But I'm interested to see. I like Lebby, man. He reminds me of the Hugh Freeze conversations from last year. I like Hugh Freeze a lot. Some things that happened last year is not Hugh Freeze-esque. So it threw me off a little bit. So I wasn't excited about Auburn as I was at the beginning of the year I wasn't as excited about Auburn at the end of the year as I was at the beginning of the year. Richmond says tough, no experience. New and improved SEC schedule. Yeah, you don't even have a division. So a lot of people have them picked right there above Vandy. They got them in those last three. They're saying that Vandy, them, and Arkansas. I think Arkansas shifts a little bit above them as far as a couple more wins than them, but who knows? I will say if Arkansas and Mississippi State are neck and neck at the end of the year, somebody's losing their job.
Shoot, I got Mississippi State beating Florida. That's a home game, buddy.
I'm just saying, man. I'm not going to be that guy.
68.
There you go. I'm not going to be that guy that jumps out and just kind of says, okay, Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, they're going to be your sleeper. No, I do see the turnover. I see the toughness of this, but I will say my red card in all this, red flag, red card, whatever you want to call it, is Jeff Lebby, dude. Like, I'm going to ride that like I rode the Hugh Freeze last year. I like his offensive strategy. I like his scheme. I like how he thinks through. I like how he sees X's and O's. He's Kiffin Jr., man. So, but questions is can the secondary improve, man? 109th against the pass last year. Bro, they're allowing 200 yards to anybody they play. So I'm spotting you 200 yards every game. And so can that be improved? Does Lebby and Mississippi State connect? Like, you saw what Zach Arnett tried to do. He tried to mesh the balance. He didn't want to be just a copy paste. He didn't want to bring in a guy that would copy paste what Leach was doing. I think everybody wants to go back and go, can we get the days of the Pirate back? But I think do they connect? Do they mesh? Does he make sense there? And can they score enough? Can they score enough for this? Just possibly score enough for this bad defense, dude. This bad defense, right? New coaches, Jeff Lebby, obviously, defensive coordinator Coleman Hutzler. I don't even know who this guy is, but I do know they have a bad defense, dude, and they only have one returning starter, and he's not a standout. And stats that need to improve. It's crazy, man. Offensive, 109th. They're giving up 200 yards off rip, and then some other defensive thing. Scoring defense is 66th at 26.6 points per game. So, man, I don't know, man. It's just a lot of things that just don't line up for Mississippi State this year. I might be wrong. Who knows, man? They might be the Cleveland Indians of Major League. I don't think so. But final thoughts on Mississippi State. I don't have any blaring things for them. I can just tell you what I see on paper.
I don't think they're going to shock the world, even if they do beat Florida. I don't think that's an upset for Florida. Florida's not going to do much this year, I'm afraid. They lost.
Well, who out of those key games would they? Like you said, you're saying Florida. Their key games are Florida at home, Arkansas at home, Texas A&M home, Ole Miss away. Who, if they're going to upset somebody, who are they going to upset out of those four?
But is Florida really an upset win? Is what I'm saying. how good is Florida going to be this year? I think they're going to be right down there near the bottom with everybody else fighting for position.
I think Florida's going to be better. I think they're going to be better than advertised. Or they're talented. They're talented. Florida's talented. I don't doubt the talent at Florida. I doubt the cohesiveness. I doubt is Napier the guy, and I doubt regardless of how good they are, can they get past the schedule they got? Dear Lord, and they got it for 2 years.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's
I mean, honestly, if it was me, I save the money and just go, you know what, guys, we're in a 2-year committal with Napier, because I'm not going to hire a new coach and make him go get just ran through the bushes, bro, for this schedule again next year. I might as well just keep him and just let him get blown out for 2 years. And we could be totally wrong. We're going to preview Florida. Might have some guys, some Florida guys on here lined up to back this smack talk down. It's not even smack talk, man. It's a hard schedule. Go look it up. Top 3 hardest schedules in the entire college football world. I think personally, Arkansas, if they're going to upset somebody, it's going to be Arkansas. And I'll tell you why. It's because I do think they make it outscore Arkansas. I think it'll be battle of the who's the worst defense. And if Arkansas can't block, give me Mississippi State scoring 78 points on them. I don't know. That's just going to have to happen. So, anyways, I think we're going to agree, man. Mississippi State's going to be into the pack. Sorry for my Mississippi State fans. I don't have any. I mean, I guess
I don't personally know any.
I got some baseball guys, but I guess they would be football fans, but I don't have any football guys I know Mississippi State wise. I thought it'd be a kick to finish off the night. I guess the Egg Bowl, the rivalry, Ole Miss, Rebels. Can we even say Rebels anymore? Sharks. What's league? What can I say, man? Like, is this going to be a copyright nightmare? Am I going to get sued for calling the Sharks land sharks? I don't know, man. Raging. The Raging Kiffins. That's what they need to be called.
The Raging Kiffins.
The Raging Kiffins. The Ole Miss Raging Kiffins. Returning standouts. So much we can say about Ole Miss. This is a. We saved it for last because Ole Miss has a lot going on, man. A lot going on. Returning standouts. Jackson Dart. I like Trey Harris, wide receiver. Caden Prescorn. This is a guy that I looked at his stats. I didn't know he hung that many stats up like he did last year, but he did. And defensive end Jared Ivey. Now, not a lot of returning standouts, but they went portal hopping, and we all know this. But so many questions at the portal, players that were brought in. Obviously, defensive tackle Walter Nolan, Princely Umani-Million. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not, but I gave it a good go. From Florida, so great additions on the defensive line. They went from an upgrade of probably on the defensive line of like a B- to like an A- on that line, maybe an A. And then Antoine Wells, huge pickup at wide receiver to complement Trey Harris from South Carolina. That was a steal. I'm sure that Kiffin was smiling at our boy from South Carolina on that one. But before we get into strengths, like, you love this conversation because you're a Kiffin guy in some aspect. Fish, what do you think about the Ole Miss Rebels? Like, I got them in my top 4. I don't know where I got them yet, but I got them in my top 4. But what do you think?
I got them finishing number 3. Just because.
What do you like about Ole Miss?
They're going to be hard this year. Lane's a good coach, man, and they just improved a great offense from last year, through the transfer portal. And somehow, everybody talks about cohesiveness and, playing together, and the longer you're together, the better you are as a team. And that's true. I agree. But also at the same time, Kiffin has this undeniable ability to gel a team in just a few months, and they all come together for like a common goal, and they play pretty well together. I think they exceed expectations every year. Maybe not, well, maybe hold on. Let me scratch that because expectation they're probably trying to win a natty because they're spending lots of money this year. Natty or bust, I think for them, definitely. I can't wait to see them play. They're gonna be good. They're gonna be real good, and their schedule is not terrible. I think it's manageable.
Yeah.
I think it's harder than most, but I think they can handle it. Their defense is what really needed to improve this year, and I think they did via the portal.
Yeah. I gotta see this team play together a little bit. I know that a lot of times when you look at Lane Kiffin Ole Miss teams, there's a swagger that he carries that you look at some of the players and it either fits or it doesn't fit. And so I'm curious to see with all of these portal guys, right? Can they get on the same page with this Kiffin swagger? There's a little bit about him that the cohesiveness has to be right with the talent in order to pull this off. There's a lot of questions. Is this he couldn't finish the deal versus Saban? Is this the year that he can do that?
Off his back this year.
Yeah, well, and then I think about it. I didn't even look at this. He doesn't even have to worry about that monkey on his back this year. He doesn't play Alabama this year.
Exactly.
So that's one thing that he kind of darted. But for Kiffin, that's going to be the X factor for me is just let me see what it looks like, and I'll be able to tell you where it's going. Give me the first 3 games, and I'll be able to tell you where it's going. Because this portal stuff has to mesh, man. Are you gonna see a lot of teammates arguing, blown assignments, lack of playing together? That's where you start looking at, if the portal works or not, because you're in year 3, 4 of NIL, and it's like you start to look and go, okay, what's the DNA of teams that are sticking together and that they can keep their players intact, and the DNA of these portal teams that are solely based off of throwing NIL money at them and them going, all right, guys, we got about 90 days or 100 days to get our crap together and to start learning how to play together. Now, the NFL can do that, but we're still talking about some of these guys are 18, 19-year-old kids, right? 20-year-old kids.
Harder.
It's harder, much harder. But strengths, obviously, Dart, probably one of the best wide receiver cores in the country. I would say some people would rank them top 2, top 3. Like I said, Trey Harris, and you're adding Antoine Wells. There's a lot of key guys that are still there as well. And you're looking at an offense that, was top 10 in passing last year in the entire country. So, and you look at, so you got a veteran O-line coming back. Thank God for Jackson Dart, because if you didn't, that man would probably have concussion number 7. And then better D-line play, right? I think the D-line play this year is going to be a strength for them because it's going to give the secondary an opportunity not to have the quarterback sitting back there for 12 and a half seconds to throw the ball. I mean, let's just be honest. Any defensive line that's improved and can get some pressure on the quarterback gives a lot better opportunity for the secondary to make a play or to just cover. It's hard to cover a wide receiver, bro, for it's an eternity. 12 seconds is an eternity.
That's so man. That's impossible.
Yeah, it's huge. Questions. What are some of your just off the cuff? What are some of your questions you think they have this year?
The secondary has to get better. Has to have gotten better. Like, that's huge because the SEC is pass heavy. As much as teams want to be old school and stuff like that, nobody's old school anymore. Not 100%. Maybe
right.
Some smaller schools are, but none of the teams that are having lots of success on the offensive side of the ball are just 100% run or 80-20 run pass. That ground and pound. I like to see that kind of football, but every aspect of college football is changing, especially the offense. It's way more pass heavy than it ever has been, per all the teams as a whole. So, they have to be able to stop people from scoring because they're going to be able to score. You're talking about 70-68 with Mississippi State. That was Mississippi last year. So I don't know, something about those Mississippi teams, and their inability to put a good defense on the field. But man, they'll be able to score. They'll be able to score some points for sure. But yeah, secondary's got to get better.
Yeah. Rich Man says dichotomy of portal teams versus recruiting teams will be interesting. I agree. This is the year where you kind of see that third or fourth year take place, and you start to wonder, like, what are we seeing as far as trends when we talking about portal players and the teams trying to mesh these portal teams together? Like, they can win some games, but can a portal team go and win it all? Like, I don't know. I mean, the NFL's built like that, right? But even the NFL, I mean, you got to think, man, does the NFL have as much turnover anymore as NIL is causing? I don't know, man. It'd be interesting to look at the free agency pools of NFL teams in alignment with NIL,
Yeah.
I think we'll learn more about NIL when NCAA comes out on PlayStation. But I saw you post unlimited NIL, right?
You laugh, but I mean, like, that's right. I mean, that's 100% right. And yes, Phil Knight has mentioned that he's going to do the unlimited funds for NIL so he can see a championship before he retires. He's 86. Like, no lie. Like, saw that on Facebook today.
I don't think I'm buying any more Nikes, bro. I'm not putting into the NIL fund for Oregon. Just think about it, dude. If you want to buy some Nikes,
too. That's hilarious.
Yeah, dude, you're funding all that.
Are we paying for that?
Yeah,
are we putting
100%.
Into their NIL?
We're the 88th uniform combo for Oregon every time we buy a pair of Nikes. More feathers, no Nike for me. There you go, man. Asics, I'm an Asics guy. That's probably like the Maryland NIL fund. I don't know. I don't know where Asics is out of, but yeah, man, secondary's got to get better. I'm thinking the defensive line helps with that. Obviously, if they get pressure on quarterbacks, man, it's hard enough to just cover some of the physicality that's happening at wide receiver. It's hard enough to cover, bro. But if I got to cover for like a long time, it's impossible. And these quarterbacks are just so talented. So you let them play, I say street ball. You let them play backyard football, dude. That's what happened to the LSU and the LSU's and the Ole Misses of last year, and the Floridas of last year, the Tennessees even. They let those receivers run around for days, and people start playing backyard ball. And I don't know about you when you used to play backyard ball. If you were the rushing back, right? You could say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and you could choose to rush. But if you did, then the quarterback could run, right?
Yeah.
But if you didn't, the quarterback could stay back there. Here's the only thing. If you chose not to rush because you're like, if I rush, he's going to be able to run, and can I stop him? That's fine. But what you're going to get into is, well, he gets to sit back here for, I don't know, 30 seconds and then you start pointing receivers around and telling them to go this way and go that way. It becomes like backyard ball. They're going to win those battles, and those quarterbacks can't cover that long. I mean, that's a big time NFL thing is amount of time and coverage. It's a no-no, man. Receivers don't make it through camp, and they don't make contracts when they can't cover for a long time. Not that it should be expected, but I guess nowadays it's like, well, you're seeing it more and more. So I agree with you about the secondary. How do they replace Quinshon Judkins? I know Marcus Carroll is he's a name. But just like we talked about with Missouri, Schrader, who's going to replace Schrader? There's a name out there, but we don't know if it works. I mean, we know Trevor Etienne is a talent. We know that Branson Robinson, what he was before his injury, but we still have questions of who's going to replace the yardage we're missing with our running backs that left us, And so, with Milton and Dejon, like, who's going to replace that? Who's going to, replace that productivity? So just like with Quinshon, like, I think he left because he knew he would never be a staple like dog. He wouldn't be a dog in the backfield for Ole Miss. That's not how they're built. But I think it's a huge question mark is who's going to replace them, because I think they still have to. You got to run the football in some capacity in the SEC, because we've all seen that it doesn't line up 100% when you're going to be a 90%, 10% pass over run. And that's the next question is do they become one dimensional? If you can't replace Quinshon Judkins, like, is this an easy wrap for Ole Miss? I mean, do they get one of those? Hey, man. I mean, I know we're going to see this. We're going to have to make decisions when NCAA football comes out, right? Do I sit in quarters? Do I sit in dime and just go, hey, man, if you can't throw the ball, I'm good. I'm good. If I can stop your run with 4 men up front and I can sit in a dime offense, I'm going to do it. So do they become one-dimensional? These are scary thoughts for Kiffin because they take all this talent and I still think as good as a defensive as Pete Golding. I don't want to say anything I want to regret. Pete Golding hasn't been it for them. I don't know if he's a good friend. I don't know if he's like a great golfing partner. You know, maybe he's winning some pro-am events with Kiffin. I don't know what he's there for, but lately it hadn't been defense. It hasn't transpired. No coaching changes. This is the first year in a long time that Kiffin has kept his coaching staff together. I mean, maybe what was the conversation? Hey guys, we went out and we spent, I don't know, we spent about $37 million in portal money, and then they're like, all right, I guess we'll stay. And then they realized that Walter Nolan makes more than secondary coach, and I don't know how that rolled over. Stats need to improve. Offensive. So last year, crazily enough, as we talk about it, in one-dimensional, 39th in the league in rushing. And I think to be a dominant SEC team, I don't think you can be outside of the top 25 in rushing and be a dominant SEC team as far as rank in the country. Because I do think the SEC has some of the most stoutest defensive lines. The defense in general, I think defense is just better in the SEC. But you're going to have to run the ball in the SEC. And then defensive passing, we talked about it, man. They're spotting people 230 every game. 230, and the highest they gave up was against LSU last year, 578 yards of passing, and that was in regulation. They went into 3 overtimes, so I think it well surpassed like 670 something yards of total passing they allowed.
Yeah.
So crazy numbers, man. Key games, LSU. What's that?
I was just saying that's terrible, man. Like, you're not going to win many games like that. But,
I watched that game, man. It never stopped.
On paper, they've brought in some guys that should improve that, but that all remains to be seen.
I agree. On paper, they're great. I watched that game. It was in a sports bar in Auburn after the Georgia-Auburn game, and I watched that game, and, dude, it never ended. It never ended. I thought this was for sure. This was like, this is it. We're going to pay our tab. We're out of here. And then I ordered another glass of water, and then we went another overtime, and then another. And then next thing I know, man, I'm like, how many yards of offense? I mean, they are wide open, and it all stemmed from, with both of them, from defensive line play. And the bad thing was, man, LSU probably has a little bit more talented offensive line than Ole Miss had. But, dude, they're just back there forever. And, Jaden Daniels had a record game that, because what we talked about in NCAA college football, they didn't want to really go at Jaden because they didn't want to get his legs involved. So they were happy to just blitz 3, maybe spy a 4, and just go, we'll sit back here with 7 people in coverage.
You destroy us.
Yeah, but you can run for days and do that. I mean, backyard ball is going to win that. Oklahoma's at home. Georgia's at home. Florida's away. They're key games. I think the key things there is Oklahoma and Georgia are at home. You get them at Ole Miss, at Hotty Toddyville, at the Grove. So that's good. They're definitely a top 4 team for me as well. I don't know where I have them. I'm going to hold out on that one until we do our first weeks of how we think it's going to stack up. But I definitely have them in my top 4. I will release my top 4. I do think Missouri's in my top 4. I think Ole Miss is in my top 4. Texas is in my top 4. Georgia's in my top 4. But there's so many like other what ifs, right? I think 4 teams is a number that could happen in the college football playoff for the SEC. I don't know if it's 5. I don't know if it's 5. I definitely know it's not 6. But if it was 5, I think the other team that is a wild card in all this is definitely Alabama. I think Alabama and LSU could be a question mark. LSU, we're going to preview them, but after I started looking at LSU on paper, yeah, I think defense is a huge question mark because the offense is still going to be crazy potent. So,
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I think we both agree pretty much on Ole Miss. I think our disagreements with Kentucky are, I think you like Kentucky. We agree on the fact that as Vandergrift goes this year, so does Kentucky, because we've seen the quarterback position in the past 3 years, and when it didn't go, Kentucky didn't go. So I think if Vandergrift goes this year, I think a lot's going to be on Butch Hamden to get that offense right, and then to mesh with Brock, but also Stoops, man. For me, I'm just not a Stoops believer, man. He's had so much time at Kentucky, and he's produced talent. He's recruited well. I mean, look at we just talked about the defense, man. We talked about the standouts on defense. Barian Brown is an incredible talent on offense. Adding Vandegrift, you got Dumas Johnson, Deion Walker, De'Aaron Jackson, Maxwell Harrison. This team is. I like Kentucky on paper, man. I just don't like Stoops. Just don't like Stoops. And
I know. And that's understandable, man. I'm not a big fan of him either. You won't catch me, at his pep rally or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I'm just a Vandergrift guy, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I wouldn't mind seeing Kentucky do well.
I agree.
I don't think they're gonna, really surprise any. I don't know. They're not gonna. They're gonna be a hard W, man. You're gonna have to play a good game to beat them this year.
Yeah. Well, Fish, that's a wrap tonight. Man, good content. We've previewed 6 SEC teams, and we're getting into the meat potatoes. Obviously, we're getting to Georgia, Auburn, Florida. It's around the corner. So, you diehard fans that are hopping in the chat or hopping on after this and want to stem questions, things you have. Very soon, the Dogs Down South TikTok page will be going live as well more often. Have had a lot of hits lately over there on just getting ready for the season. The stir of the moment, as I would say, is starting to bring some of those fans out of the woodwork. And I do think that a lot of those fans, you would be shocked to know who those fans are. It's a lot of Texas and a lot of Oklahoma fans. They're pretty proud about their entrance into the SEC. And we're excited to have them. We're actually going to roll out the red carpet at Media Days for them. I mean, we gave them the best schedule in the SEC, and we gave them home field advantage for Media Days. What else do they want, right? I guess the thing's true. The oil and everything's always bigger in Texas, right? But yeah, man, always a pleasure. Fish, really enjoyed it. Hey guys, if you have not already done so, hit the like button on Facebook, Dogs Down South, YouTube, Dogs Down South. Had some YouTube questions and some little chime-ins about a couple teams from the preview 2 weeks ago. Had some comments from Arkansas fans about a lot of they're expecting an improved offensive line this year. My comments were, I hope so, because if they don't improve at offensive line, it's no different of a year for them, and they will not have a coach. And Petrino will, I don't know, man. Like, if you can have the best offensive coordinator and quarterback in the conference, but if they can't stand on 2 feet and throw the ball, it's not going to matter. So the offensive play is crucial. So I hope they're right. Definitely hope that. But follow us on YouTube. And always remember, 24 hours after this live session, we are on Apple Podcasts. This will be episode 18 going up on Apple Podcasts. This time tomorrow, previewing Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. For myself and the Fishman himself, thanks for joining tonight. And as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.